Hello, and welcome to Coyote BD Paints Miniatures, the YouTube channel where I talk over my old streams, or not old streams, but past streams from Twitch, twitch.tv/CoyoteBD. Let's get right into what I'm doing, and then I will explain a little bit of how I'm doing and yammer on a bit. This is my third take. My voice is getting hoarse. I'm trying to make this too perfect, and it's not going to be. So I think it will be what it will be, no matter what now. I'm painting an Infinity the Game Nomad Wildcat. It's a miniature for a skirmish game by Corvus Belli. They're really wonderful miniatures. I'm painting this as a competition piece for a local contest I'm entering. It's just one of those buy a miniature, paint it in a month type deals. So I'm doing my best, but I'm not going to kill myself trying to make it perfect. Sometimes perfect isn't the best, because you get to a point where it's almost perfect, and anything you do past that point is only going to actually make it worse. So we're in the flatting stage right now. This is where I take my paints and mix what I think I want the color to be and apply it to everywhere I want that color. And the goal of this step is to create your color separation. Make sure that you're not putting light colors too closely together, so that your sections that you want to differentiate have contrast do have differentiation and contrast. I'm also looking at color value as well as color. So you want some dark and light contrast, that sort of thing. I'm using just opaque paints, fairly thin, so they flow well, because I'm not too worried about coverage. These don't get second coats, it's just one coat and done. Alright, so that's the process. Let's talk about the paints. I'm using Chimera paints. You can see them right at the top there, just the very bottoms of the paints. There's 13 colors in their line. They're brand new. They're out of Italy from Chimera Miniatures, which is the sister company of Pegaso, which is a storied, historical, large-scale model miniature maker, metal figurines and stuff. So these are essentially my ideal paints. I only got them over Christmas, and I love them. And before I knew they existed, I wished that someone would make them, and I despaired that no one ever would, because it didn't seem like something that anyone would ever make, but it was what I wanted. And maybe another day I'll go into detail about my paint preferences, but let's just say they're a single pigment paint. They are ideal for a limited palette, such as what I use. I like to only use certain amount of colors and just mix everything, and then you really get to know your paints. You get to know how they mix. You can do any color you want, and you don't worry about exact color matching, because it's not a thing that you have to worry about as much as everybody thinks you do. You take even a futuristic spacesuits, they're going to be pretty close, but then once they've been in the field for a while, they're going to start changing. So it's just, it's one of those things. You don't need to match exactly. If it's close enough to your eye when you mix, it's probably going to be close enough for reality. So here we are. This is a white and a black and a phthalo blue green shade, which is I love this kind of steely gray, light gray. In this case, I've done it too dark. It will be much lighter in a finished piece. And this is one of the things, like, I used to take copious paint notes, and now I don't, because what am I going to do, Like, before it was like I used Vallejo, so it would be so many drops of this to so many drops of this to so many drops of this would give me my color. Now it's I get my main color. They're like, oh, this is this color. It's a yellow, but it's a pale yellow. So we're going to have a lot of white, a lot of yellow, and then I'm going to throw in some colors to take down the saturation of the yellow. Then I'll throw in like an undertone that I want it to be, so it's like a yellow, but it's got like a little bit more greenish, we'll say. That sort of thing. So it just doesn't lend itself to color notes very well, which is kind of, every once in a while that bites me, but every once in a while when I made color notes, it would bite me as well, because I would forget to make a note for some color. So it just, whatever. I don't do it anymore. I kind of miss it. I still keep my little notebook, and I've tried to change the type of notes I make. So just you're kind of best guessed about what the color is going to be, what the value is going to be. You're going to completely cover this, so you don't need to worry about coverage. You don't need to do multiple coats. And it's just very fast. You have all your paints on your palette as you work, so that if you change your mind, if you realize that you've kind of messed things up a bit, you can go back and change it. So just apply it nice and neat, fast, more fast than neat. I've been painting for many years, and for me, brush control and staying in the lines is just, it's not something I worry about anymore, and it's something that other painters, as you get more experience, it's gonna happen. It helps if you have a good brush. This is a Kolinsky, an imitation Kolinsky sable brush from Raphael. So when I went to Kolinsky Sable, I went to Winsor & Newton, and I used them for a while, and then I got a bad Winsor & Newton brush where it was just like it was a puffball at the end, and I said, no good. So then I heard Raphael was good, so I ordered some Raphaels, and I got a bunch of good ones, and then apparently I guess they changed factories, and their quality control really suffered, and I got some bad brushes from them. They're all ordered online, so I would like order a couple of brushes just so that I wouldn't have to constantly be ordering brushes every few months, and like the whole batch was bad. And I was like, oh no. And then I heard about this other brush, Sharf brush, also known as Art brush out of the US, although the brushes themselves are stamped France, the handles. But I guess, I don't know. They're apparently made in the US, but whatever. They've been good. They wear very fast, I found. Faster than anything else. So after a month of usage, the tip will be like, it hasn't frayed, hasn't splayed out. It hasn't lost the tip, but it'll lose like 2 millimeters off the tip, and it's just not as sharp anymore. So I noticed my local shop, DeSayers, carries Raphael. So I said, you know what? All brushes are going to have problems. It's better to look at your brush and test it at the store to make sure. Just real quick on flatting, see, I've decided to change, you just saw there, I changed that from orange to the armor color, and then I'm like, no, I don't like that, I'm changing it back. That's the advantage of flatting. You can just do things how you want, and if they don't look right, you can fix them. You're not invested hours of blending, and then you find out things aren't working. You get things working before you get to the next stage. Speeds up the process, makes it a lot easier. Makes it a little bit kind of paint by numbers, which is fine, because it lets you focus your attention on other things, more important things at the stage when they're important, which we'll get into in a little bit. So this is actually an imitation sable. I bought it on a whim because I'm like, hey, Kolinsky sable's the best, but let's see how this is, because if it's not real sable, then it's slightly better, right? Like if it's as good, but it's synthetic hair, I will prefer that. Just leave the sables alone, basically. So that was flatting. Now we're into rendering. This is the stage where I am applying my highlights and shadows. This will be rendering and detailing, but we'll go into detailing a little bit. So when I'm applying my shadows and highlights, my primary focus, see, I've got color placement, that's done. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm just focused on getting my highlights where they should go, my shadows where they should go, getting the contrast between them properly. So I'm using opaque paints at this stage, same opacity that I've used for all my flatting, and I'm putting my highlights. I'll put my high highlights, and then maybe I'll bring it down or I'll bring it up. I just kind of figure it out as I go. A lot of people are spending a lot of time trying to improve their blending. They're experimenting with wet blending. You'll see a post somewhere and they'll say, hey, this is my 3rd attempt at wet blending. Give me criticism. And the blend's just in a weird spot that doesn't look right. It doesn't look like it's being caused by light hitting the surface. It doesn't give a 3D effect. It's just wet blending for wet blending because they see people with really well painted miniatures. They go, oh, how they do it, wet blending, that's what I'm going to do. No. Until you get your highlight placement, don't worry about blending. So I start off with opaque paints. It's a lot faster than building it up slowly with glazes. Additionally, when you build up slowly with glazes, you kind of are not controlling where the transitions are hitting. And where the transition hits is the key. It's the important thing. It's your edges. So build up opaque, and then what I do is I take my same colors, and I'll take my mid-tone and the next level highlight up, and I'll kind of mix them together, and I'll throw in a bit of matte medium, make it a little bit transparent, not a full glaze, but a little bit, and then I'll put that in my transition, and I'll slowly work them out. And this whole time, I'm not cleaning my brush. I want everything to kind of be blending in the brush on the miniature, and I start glazing more and more and more until my glaze is smooth. It's a lot faster than starting with like a dark gray and just slowly glazing white. It doesn't go as chalky. With white, you actually want to go the opposite direction. You want to paint it white and then glaze down your shadows, because white pigments have amazing coverage. So even when it's very, very thinned, it still has coverage. So you can still kind of see the lines. So you thin it more, and then you have just water and pigment and basically no medium. So when it dries, you basically have dry pigments, which is like chalk. It looks chalky. And then you put another coat on and it lifts those pigments up because there's no binder on it. Bad. When you thin your paints, add medium. This was more important in the past for picture painters, portrait painters, and those landscape guys and girls, because the paint quality wasn't as good. The paint quality is much improved now, so apparently you don't have to worry about medium as much. I was just looking at some recent research because I read research on paints. But with model paints, because we're thinning them so much, you still need to add medium. Essentially, rule of thumb, don't add more than half of the paint volume in water. So whenever I add water, I add medium. Because at a certain point, the paint is thin enough, and really you're trying to control transparency, and you have more control with a matte medium. So I apply my highlights opaque, I apply my shades opaque, and then I start using more and more transparent paints to glaze them together and smooth them out. And this is what I call my rendering stage. This is basically all the rest of the videos are essentially going to be this, because I've done my flatting, I've planned out, plotted my miniature, I've got my base, and then after that, and what we're seeing right here is rendering. That's where I go in to get my lines back. So there's like a shadow line because there's some sort of slits in this helmet or whatever. So now I'm going in and I'm picking those out with my dark colors. I'll do the same thing with a white for my edge highlights. When you're doing smooth blends, you still want edge highlights, because an edge is a very curved surface. A tight curve, tight radius like that is going to compress. It's going to reflect a lot of sky, right? Or a lot of light. So it is usually a rounded edge is brighter than the flat surface it's next to, or it appears to be. Sometimes it's not, and our brain just tricks us to think it is. So paint it that way. I don't know where my miniature's gone. So first I flat, then I render, and then I add these details. Because when you're doing the rendering, if you've already done your details, you're going to kind of muddy them up a bit. So do the details in the last. This is my third step. I apologize, my voice is getting really hoarse. It was getting hoarse in my last take. I thought it was good. And then I did my sign off 2 minutes early. Did my sign off. I was all happy, and I was just watching the video continue. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of video left. I didn't have to sign off quite so quickly. I'm still learning this. So now that I've done this, let's quickly do like who I am and what I do. My name is CoyoteBD. I'm Tyler Provic. I paint on Twitch now. I have an Instagram. So twitch.tv/CoyoteBD. Instagram is tyler.provic. Twitter is @CoyoteBD. Follow me on Twitter or Twitch to get when I stream. I usually stream around 10 most evenings, but if I have a choice between playing board games with my daughter or streaming, I will play board games with my daughter every time. So that's what happened to me last night. I'm new to this. I've just started. So drop a comment, drop a like. You can't do dislikes anymore. Subscribe to the YouTube. Tell me how I'm doing. Don't subscribe to me on Twitter. You can't. But come visit me on Twitch. Say hello. Tell me what you like to see. I have a bunch more of these videos coming because this was the whole paint thing. I'm going to compress them. I think I'm going to do half speed like I'm doing here, or 200% speed, which is double speed. But thanks for watching. This has been CoyoteBD Paints Miniatures. Twitch.tv/CoyoteBD. Have a great day.